at the security training that is being delivered by the Eclipse Foundation Security team. We are using the Zoom platform for this training, so you do have access to chat and you do have access to the QA. If you have questions during the presentation, please ask the question in the QA. There's a team that will be answering those questions and will take the most interesting questions live during the session. We are going to start right now when people are still joining, but with a little bit of introduction of how this training is going to work today. So, this training has been designed for developers. For developers, both working on the projects of the Eclipse Foundation and for developers working for various projects all around the internet. And this is the second part. We've already done the first part in November. This will be centered on vulnerability management today, and we have a follow-up in a week. We'll be talking about advanced subjects in vulnerability management and about SBOMs and related subjects. During this session here with me are my colleagues from the Eclipse Foundation Security team, Cairo, Ioana and Tiago, and they will be managing the session and answering questions as they go. I will be delivering the first part on the introduction of vulnerabilities, and Cairo will be delivering the second part. The idea of this format was that we do independent sessions that last between 15 and 20 minutes. We do QA, and then we can do another session. So we plan 2 parts today: introduction to vulnerability management and how we handle vulnerability management at the Eclipse Foundation. That I think will be useful for every audience, showing the theory, the basics, but also how it can be implemented in practice. There will be recordings of those videos, so you can review them later. There will be slides also available that you can review or pass to your friends who couldn't be there. I absolutely encourage you to share the resources with all your friends and colleagues. So, let's get started. So, what is a vulnerability? To understand what is a vulnerability, we will have a look at what is security. One of the popular definitions of security, or rather security properties, is telling us that security is divided into 3 properties: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. We understand how they work, and a vulnerability is when one of those properties is broken. So there are many definitions of vulnerabilities. Here we have 2 examples. First example comes from the CVE program glossary. We are going to have a look at how the CVE program works in a minute. And the definition from the CVE program says it's an instance of one or more weaknesses in a product that can be exploited, causing a negative impact to confidentiality, integrity, or availability. So we have the notion of exploited, so used by an attacker to perform some action, and also the notion of confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And we also have a different definition coming from the Cyber Resilience Act, Article 3, and there it is defined as a weakness, susceptibility, or flaw of a product with digital element that can be exploited by cyber threat. A pretty similar definition. Important for you to remember is the notion of exploiting a vulnerability, and there's the notion of those basic security principles. So, to have a little bit of training for this definition, we'll have an exercise. I will ask you to tell me if a given situation is a vulnerability or not. Please answer by the reactions. So you can do reactions that will show you what you think it is a vulnerability or not. So the first situation. In a web application, a user can log in to any account by using the password 12345 instead of the actual password. And this additional password cannot be disabled by a configuration option. So, for you, is this a vulnerability or not? You can tell me in the chat or using the reactions. What do you think? Is it a vulnerability or not? Yeah, I see a first answer. It's yes. Second, yes, yes. A big one. Yes, I agree. I agree, and yes, this is a vulnerability. But that was the first example to start. The second example, and the same rules apply. Answer in the chat. A web server crashes when receiving a GET request of a specific URL with a set of specific parameters, and then the service needs to be restarted to function. Is it a vulnerability for you or not? Yeah, we can see yes, yes, and a good remark, that's the availability principle that is being touched here. So definitely this is a vulnerability. So then the third example, in a text editor, the text color in one of the windows makes it very hard to read. So what do you think about this one? No, I get answers no, 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 no. Yeah, user interface. I agree with you. In most cases, this is not a vulnerability, except if the attacker, because of the color of the text, manages to convince the user to click to something that the user shouldn't be. But in the most types of situations, that is a bug, not a vulnerability. So when we have the definition of vulnerability, there is an ecosystem around vulnerability handling. And the first big abbreviations you have when you look at the vulnerabilities is CVE, and that means common vulnerabilities and exposures. That's the biggest vulnerability database that is there, and the scope is include all known vulnerabilities in all products. It doesn't matter if those products are commercial, if they are open source. They register all known vulnerabilities, and they have data since 1999. The CVE program assigns CVEs that look like CVE 19001234, where the CVE does the prefix, 1900, that is the year, of course, we didn't have any vulnerabilities in at least none of the registered one. and 1, 2, 3, 4 is a unique ID during that year. Apart from the ID itself, entry in the CV database contains things like description, the vendor, the severity information. There have been multiple formats over the years. Currently, you can find all of these data in the JSON format on GitHub, and you can consult it at every moment you want. When reading, you cannot write to this repository. Data quality, when you have a look, it varies in the entries. The Eclipse Foundation is assigning CVE IDs for the projects that are hosted by the Eclipse Foundation. So the Eclipse Foundation is one of the CNAs. A CNA is CVE Numbering Authority, the organization that can assign CVE numbers. Typically, those are vendors of that specific software. In the case of open source, typically foundations or other organizations that host a specific project. Recently, there was a little bit of news about the CVE program because it's financed by the US government, and there was a memo that leaked on April 15th about the program risking losing funding. That issues had been resolved since, but the community has doubts about the sustainability of the whole program, taking into account that it's financed by a single body. So the story is to be followed. Then there is a second database called NVD, National Vulnerability Database, that basically exists because the data that was there in the CV database didn't include everything that people needed. And the NVD has been augmenting the data in the CV database with things like machine-readable product and vendor information, so which product it is and which vendor it is. That is something absolutely necessary for automatic scanners. If you have 300 dependencies in your product, you are not going to have a look for those manually. You need an automatic scanner, and currently automatic scanners quite frequently are based on the NVD database. And the NVD is also adding severity information that is useful if you are doing prioritization of your fixes or your updates. And the NVD database has also had an issue. It stopped adding new entries for a few weeks in February 2024. That has been restarted, but they still have an important backlog, what means that there are vulnerabilities that exist that have their CV entries, but they haven't been augmented by the NVD. So if your scanner is based only on NVD, it may be missing some existing vulnerabilities. And this is a common discussion subject in the cybersecurity field those days. And that's not all, because we have way more databases. GitHub has its own database of advisories based on GitHub private advisories. Cairo will be talking about this later today. There's a database called OSV that includes only open source projects. And that is interesting because it includes a machine-readable format by default. And there's a new player in the game, the European Vulnerability Database, that is now in beta. And that is currently assembling existing sources, but it is going to be used in the context of the Cyber Resilience Act. So it may become an important player in the game in the years to come. Now, when you have a CVE entry, how do you read it? And let's have an example at one of the recent ones that we have published. CVE 2025-4447, so it means it's a vulnerability that has been published in 2025. Published by the Eclipse Foundation. You can see at the top of the entry that it has been published on May 9th, the last update of the same date, so there were no changes since the actual publication. The title, so that gives the basic information about the issue, buffer overflow in Eclipse OpenJ9. Then we have description that gives us a little bit more information, so we can read that in Eclipse OpenJ9 versions up to 0.51, when used with OpenJDK version 8, a stack buffer overflow, and so on, and we can learn what is happening and in which situation. And then we have the part on CVE. CVE, it's the common weakness enumeration. So that's a database of possible types of bugs. And in this case, you can see that CVE 121 is the stack-based buffer overflow. And there's a big catalog of those if you need it, but usually when you see it, you can understand what the problem is. Then there comes optional CVSS code, so that's a severity score that has a numerical value from 0 to 10. In this case, we have 7, so that's high severity vulnerability. In this case, we have assigned a CVSS in the format of version 4, that's the latest format. And the CVS string is an encoded text that gives us information about how the attacker could exploit the vulnerability and which security properties have been touched. There are online decoders that allow you to encode and decode the CVSS on the go. Then we have the project status with the vendor, a product, no surprise, the vendor's Eclipse Foundation product, OpenJ9. And then we have versions. So in this case, we have the affected versions are from 0.80 through 0.490. And if you have been comparing with the text on top, you can see that there seems to be 0.50 missing, but that's not the case because the project didn't have 0.50. I verified that. So after 0.49, there was 0.51, so we have everything covered. And then if you are looking at more information about the issue, you have the reference section, and in this case, you have a link to the CVE assignment ticket in the GitLab handled by Eclipse Foundation, and you have the pull request so that you can have a look at the fix itself. Now, on the vulnerability reporting, everyone can report vulnerabilities. You don't have to be a security researcher. In fact, quite often, those are other developers that report an issue in a different project. So it's important to know how to report. What important thing to do is to find a confidential way to contact the affected project. So there's typically either the dedicated mailing list or the security bug tracker or GitHub private advisories or a bug bounty program, depending on the project configuration. As for every bug, send details that show how to reproduce, answer questions, and talk about the issue only after the project have a fix, because otherwise the attacker may learn about the issue before. And definitely what you shouldn't do is talking over public channels, like sending the information in public mailing list, talking on IRC, Discord, or places like that. For open source projects, if the project doesn't have a paid bug bounty program, doesn't make sense to request payment for your discovery. Please don't send results from automatic tools without verifying them. That's unfortunately a big problem those days. And yet again, please do not talk about unfixed vulnerabilities, because attackers may use that information too. How to find out the ways to report? In open source projects, there's typically a security file in the main source repository where you can find the way on how to do it. The file may include other information, for example, which versions are supported, or or the security history of the project, whatever the project wants. And here at Eclipse Foundation, we propose a templates for projects so that they can use it and adapt to their needs. And of course, everyone can use those templates. An overview of how the handling is working as a process. So in our case, there's a security team working together with projects. The security team is usually receiving the notification about the issues and is passing it to the right project. And during the whole process, working with the project, helping them, filling the CV entry, discussing with researchers, and then publishing the finding that they have. Other foundations and projects have similar organizations when they have a security team. For every project you contribute to or you used to, you can find out how to contact the security team if you need any assistance. Now we are going to run our quiz about the things that we have talked about today. So I'm going to start the quiz, and you should have it on the screen right now. To test your knowledge, we are going to give you, let's say 3 minutes to fix the quiz, and during that time I'm going to ask my colleagues to tell me if there are interesting questions to be answered that we haven't covered in the presentation.
So far, we only have one question. How up to date and well maintained is the CVE database?
It's an excellent question. The database is maintained by each of the CNAs, so each vendor of the software, because they are the only ones who can modify entries that concern their product. So, for example, according to the rules of the CVE program, that's only the Eclipse Foundation that can change entries affecting Eclipse Foundation project. So the quality of data depends very much on the organization that is working on those entries, and it very much depends on the experience of the number of the volume that they get, and also on their internal policies. And definitely there's a big difference on quality in that, and way of filling those entries too. It's a pretty interesting subject. Also, the quality of data is one of the subject that is really under discussion. I can see that we have 25 people at the moment who have finished, so people are getting to the end. I think we can keep it yeah, we can keep it a little while more, so then we can show you what the correct answers are. I can see that they are pretty good answers already. In there, 55 people, excellent. You are finishing. You are finishing the quiz. Let's wait until 28 and then I will reveal the answers, because I'm not going to give any hints at this point, right? That wouldn't be fair. Okay, we have 64 people. Have everyone finished? Okay, I will wait until the 5 minutes of the quiz, and then we'll show you answers. You are great. There are 70 people who have finished already. You are excellent. Okay, so let's end it right now, and people who haven't finished will have a possibility to review the materials later to verify. So let's end it here, and I can share results with you. I'm going to sharing correct results to you. So in the first question, the authorization is the only one that is not a security principle, because it's a method of it's a security method, but it's not the security principle. But that's close. It's related to security. The second question looked a little bit tricky for some people. If the issue cannot be exploited, is it a vulnerability? The general answer is no. It is not a vulnerability if it cannot be exploited at all. That was in the definition of the vulnerability. But if it cannot be exploited in that particular situation, it can still be a vulnerability. Then the question about the major rewrite of code, then most of you have correctly answered that this is a vulnerability. On the fourth question, CVE numbers are a way to identify vulnerabilities, but not the only way. On the fifth question, I'm very happy to notice that you have, yeah, I can see now that there seems to be a duplicate step. So for the next sessions, we need to correct the answers. I do not know how it ended up incorrectly at the same place, but most of you have answered correctly, putting communication at the very end. So thank you all for the participation in this part, and we are at 31, so I will be giving the screen to Cairo.